You did expect that a whole lot of Nigerians living in the 21st century would ordinarily come to understand the dangers of practicing religion wrongly. But the reverse is the case. You get to see how people can be blinded in the face of evidence and want to remain in their levels of ignorance, all in the name of, holding sentiments as it concerns beliefs here and there on different fronts. But that also is a thing to be expected, because it takes a whole lot to really get people out of that particular notion of doing things and getting to live life in such a way. As such, Peter Obi granted the Honest Bunch an interview, and from the snippet we got to see.
I'm not a happy person in Nigeria, because we can't continue like this. Chinedu, we can't continue to breed poverty. That's not that's not leadership. Everybody before me spoiled everything. We didn't hire you to remind us of our past. No, it wasn't as if we appointed you. You said, I will do this. Borrowing money. Where did you came the money you borrow? He's telling you story. He says he's going on holidays. We live largely in a very unproductive society. That's why the only thing that is attractive here is politics and church. You need to dismantle it. And we're going to turn night vigil into night shift so people can be productive. I go to church, I believe in God.
Yes.
But we cannot have people Monday to Friday be in church morning and night. No. If I go from here now to my house, the only signboard you see is signboard of churches. You go to the east, it's burials. That's not the country. If you go to any other country, you see products. Women are less corrupt. Yeah, I can tell you that. They are not as corrupt as men. And because they have families, they are more determined to see things work.
It has sparked a whole lot of controversies as it concerns different issues down there. And the same way when Dr. Ebel Damina went to the same podcast, people started commenting even before getting a chance to see or to listen to the entire content of the interview. Same thing also is happening with the current interview Peter Obi granted. The last time was Dikin Famous commenting as to why Dr. Ebel Damina would have granted such an interview to quote and unquote a worldly podcast. Same thing also is happening now with Peter Obi, but then the person down here is Solomon Buchi. I was not expecting anything serious. It's not as though I would consider Buchi an intellectual, but he has a whole lot of following, and one would expect that with somebody with such amount of following and who tries also to put out contents that ordinarily seem intellectually driven, that such a person would ordinarily know what to do and what not to do and how to say things. But history always gets to repeat itself. So we have his comments as it concerns the idea of Peter Obi talking about the church. And what did Peter Obi actually say about the church? He talked about the fact that he is going to convert night vigil to night shifts. Because it is a reality. Nigeria has not gotten to the level it ordinarily needs to be in the 21st century. A country cannot survive that way. People get to stay on traffics. People get to stay on the road, stay in traffics for hours on end. In Lagos an example, Abuja an example, and then hours have been wasted and nothing is being said about that, nothing is being done about that. For the short period I lived in Lagos and the short period I also lived in Abuja, you could see the frustration in my person, my kind of person, and the type of life I have chosen to lead for myself. The frustration stems from the fact that the traffic has been like that, and almost nobody seems to really be thinking of real-time solutions as it concerns how to navigate ways in real time, as it concerns how we are going to cut the loss as it concerns what goes down on our productivity index, and how we ordinarily are underserved, and how we ourselves are not ordinarily as serious as we ordinarily want to be. But I understand the sentiments also that comes with talking about the church in that particular, especially from the Pentecostal point of view, but not also from the Pentecostal point of view, from the Catholic perspective. Nobody is saying you shouldn't pray. People ought to pray. People need to pray. For those who think prayer is a thing they ought to do, because it amplifies and it helps grant ways to get to look at things from better perspective. But you cannot pray for the wrong reasons, and that is what people in Nigeria have been doing. We have been praying for the wrong reasons. We've been praying for the wrongest of things in this world, and we don't really see it. We've been praying for the wrongest of intentions. We've been praying for things we ordinarily shouldn't be praying about, and we are all fine about that. We are all good. We all think it's all normal. Like, you go to church on Monday, you go to church on Tuesday, you go to church on Wednesday, on Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Some churches, some centers of prayers make it compulsory. You have to participate every day. You have to go out for these programs every day. Without that, you ordinarily would not come to be considered a member of the church. Some parishes get to make it look as though you must attend mass every day, but that is not the case. And we will always fall back to the West. We will always fall back to what presumably has been the bedrock of, or the stronghold of Christianity, at least in the last centuries, up until now, where they are now at the edge of Christianity. They are the fringes of Christianity, and the other parts of the world have taken over. People get to make these assumptions, and people get to make this comparison as it concerns what makes for life in Europe and in America, as it concerns what makes for life in third world countries, and their views and their aspects, and how they get to look at religion from first an economic standpoint, and then second to the level of freedom and the ways of getting to live life. These are not examples we have to go very, very far to get to fetch. These are examples we can fetch from the very confines of our life and how we get to do things. One of the ways you can get to see that is in the fact that when somebody leaves the continent, sooner or later, the person is going to discover that he has been wasting his time back home. He has not been as productive as he ordinarily should be. As such, you see a whole lot of persons go down trying to hustle their life out, because they also have bills to pay, right? And they've also come to see that the system works. Why will you want to hang around in church for 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, praying for the wrong reasons? The things you are praying about are not things God ordinarily will come down to do for you. Are things you ordinarily, with your God-given brain, with your God-given talent and skills, and human ingenuity, you can come to forge answers for things you ordinarily want to forge. Whether in times past, breads have been multiplied, loaves have been multiplied for people, whether the dead have been raised before in the past, doesn't mean dispensations don't come and go, doesn't mean things don't get to change. We major in the minor, as it has come to be popularly said, and we minor in the major. Explain to me why you live in the 21st century with solutions already made possible as it concerns how our lives ordinarily should be championed, how our lives ordinarily should go down here, and then you want to do it otherwise, and then you want to disturb God for things ordinarily shouldn't be disturbing him about. Is he that jobless? Is he that less busy of a person, if we are to go by way of anthropomorphism, to be thinking about things ordinarily shouldn't be thinking about? Our responsibility has been neglected, and we don't look at this, we don't see it, we don't even want to be told, we don't even want somebody to tell us that we have been so irresponsible, because for the longest of times we have been very, very irresponsible. We have done little or nothing to come to better situations. We have come to do little or nothing to get to champion our sciences. We've done little or nothing to get to look at the discoveries we ordinarily have to do. And we don't hold our political leaders accountable. We don't hold the people we ordinarily should hold accountable. We prefer to fight religious wars. We prefer to show our shabby and our shallow ways of thinking and our intellectualism on the public front, and we say it and we do it boldly. We say it with all level of conviction. We say it with all level of pride. We say it with all level of seriousness, giving W.B. Yeats a real-time reason for writing the Second Coming. Those who have things to say, don't say them, and those who have nothing to say, go about saying a whole lot of things, go about opening their chests wide open and speaking so comfortably and confidently about things almost they know nothing about. They get to speak so proudly, so freely, with chest open, and then try to make it look as if their problem is not a problem. Tell me where on earth people pray the way they get to pray than the way they get to pray in Nigeria. The statistics are out there that, at least amongst the Catholic folks, that we as Nigerians at the moment hold the record for the most church attending Catholics in the world at the moment. But if you check critically, how many persons are genuinely Christians? How many persons are genuinely going to those churches and attending those masses to get to commune with God rather than complain about problems? How many persons get to pray the way they get to pray because they ordinarily want to pray that way, rather than for the simple reason of coming to have an opium, coming to have a thing ordinarily that will give them a sense of succor, a sense of peace, a sense of escape from the real world. As such, you begin to see that on the side of Christianity, it's a very shallow thing to do. On the side of spirituality, it's also a shallow thing to do. On the economic side, it's also not helping matters. As such, you see, Peter will be getting to say the things he is currently saying. He is not wrong. Dear Christians in Nigeria, Peter Obi is not lying. He's not saying that because he's a politician or because he's a secularist or because he's a man of little faith. No. You who go to church and pray the way you get to pray are not a person of so much faith as it concerns to what ordinarily faith entails. You are a person within a system that ordinarily has made you to be that way. You're not supposed to attend prayers and attend masses the way you attend and make the outrageous request and book the outrageous mass intentions you get to book. You only have to do that because you are in Nigeria. You only have to do that because the system around you doesn't work. The economy you find yourself is an economy that ordinarily cannot sustain you. It's an economy that ordinarily will leave you hanging. It's an economy that ordinarily will leave you crumbled. It's an economy that will leave you in pain, in shambles. The countries you get to pray and the countries you get to hope that your friends and family members get to send you money for those who are abroad are not economies championed by prayers. It has never been. Prayers have never been what drives human ingenuity in its entirety. Prayers have never been what has moved the nation. You hear the likes of the prayers you get to hear of different people. Those stories are stories as far as they are stories. They're not stories that champion a civilization. From the gymnasium we had in monasteries up to their conversion to universities we have in the modern time, the monasteries have been places for both work and prayer, championed by the Benedictines. It has never been a place for prayers alone. To walk is to pray. As much as saying you walk while you pray and you pray while you walk. As such, you see such monasteries champion industrialization up onto what Europe has become. They owe it to their monasteries. You want to talk about education? You want to talk about the advent of universities and how the Dominicans and a whole lot of other scholastics championed this from the 12th century up until the modern time as we've now come to have it. And you want to tell yourself still education is a scam? Education cannot be a scam. Many persons listened to Elon Musk the other day and it was being made viral everywhere. As much as you want to make wealth out of education. You should know that that is not the goal of education. It is to enlighten the mind. From there, you get other things out of it. It is not an end in itself. It is not an end in itself. It is a way through something. It is a way into the next phase of your life. It is not an end in itself. So that when people say education is scam, when people say church na scam, they mix these things up together. There's a place for religion for those who want to be religious, and everybody ordinarily ought to be religious because there's a void in us. But that is not in and about it. You see pastors these days hold online services, make outrageous claims. Suleiman commands miracle money, sues journalists to court, forgetting to tell him that miracle money is a scam. It's a scam. Peter Obi said it. It is not because Peter Obi said it that makes it valid. It is a scam that anybody who gets to tell you miracle money exists is a criminal. And such a person is a fraudulent person. If you've ever been to any church and you've been told miracle money is a thing, it's a reality, it's a thing you ordinarily ought to do, it's a thing you ordinarily ought to believe in, you should know that you are dealing with a fraudster. You should know that your pastor, your priest is deceiving you. Same thing goes for bazaar. When they come out to tell you, the faster you come out to give, the faster your blessing comes. The louder your amen, the louder your blessings, the faster your miracle. You know you are in a community, or you're in the presence of a fraudster, or you're in the presence of a confused priest. You're in the presence of a confused pastor. You're in the presence of a confused church. Because indeed, it's only confused people that get to attribute to God what ordinarily they should do for themselves. It is only confused people and an irresponsible people that live into the hands of God things such as granting of visas, things such as getting an appointment, things such as employment. You don't need to pray about these things. You can give thanks as much as you want to the benevolent being you get to believe in, to the God you get to worship. But it doesn't necessitate the necessary ritual and the levels we get to go to get to see that we get basic things. Because in Nigeria, basic things are not basic. Basic amenities are never meant for everybody. As such, we get to see the way things are done. And we allow ourselves to be maltreated. We allow ourselves to be traumatized. We allow ourselves to be punished the levels we have been punished. And then we now think it's a normal thing to do. It is not a normal thing. For systems that work with the levels of racism and with the level of classism and elitism you get to find among such systems, you still find that grants are given without somebody knowing where your father is from. Ask your brothers and sisters how they are researching and studying abroad. They can only do that because they're on grant. Ask yourself how your brothers and sisters get the scholarships they get. It is because people abroad have made such possible. It is because people have come to understand that a thing like work is possible, and a thing like scholarship should be championed so that the society continues to go forward. These are societies that you ordinarily will go and work in the gastronomy and you think that's all to life, or you go and do caregiving and you think that's all to life. But they know the importance of scholarship, they know the importance of academic discipline. As such, they continue to champion and they continue to fuel and drive education because they know what research can do. When Alan Turing conceived the idea of AI in response to his loneliness and naming the first research material he did Christopher, it was because he was in the academic world he was able to do that. It was because he was thinking critically and he was trying to implement those things in the world as we come to have them. That was why he was able to do that. And for his work, after he died, when he was charged with homosexuality and eventually killed and maltreated the way he did, the way he was maltreated before he died, the work continued because people researched on that for decades, almost a century before we now have what we now have. And many of us think in the 21st century that this is just the advent of AI. It has been in place. It has been a thing in progress for a very long time. There have been different forms, as much as we've now come to look at softwares and as what we now call AI. It goes further than that. It goes more than that particular way of thinking. People have been doing the best to come to make things better. Is it in medicine? Is it in biology, botany, zoology? Is it in the sciences? Is it in the arts? People are increasing and making ends meet. People are making sure that things get better. But you live in a society where your political leaders have made things so difficult for you. The systems have not been set in place. 60 years running, or 100 plus years after amalgamation in 1914, nothing has been made to work. Your leaders have been starved of ideas, bereaved of what ordinarily should be done. As such, you live in the current situation where you live in, and you don't see almost any reason or anything wrong in the way things are. When they talk about a city, you think of Abuja. And when they talk about Abuja, you think of Asokoro. You think about Wuse Zone 5. You think about all these places, excluding places like Kubwa, excluding places like Karo, and the different places that ordinarily constitute the Federal Capital Territory. Why? Because these are the places that ordinarily would match up at least to an extent to what a city looks like. But we are way back. We are way behind. And there's no better way to say this than this way. We are way behind from our ways of worshiping to the reasons we get to do things. We are way behind. If you listen to Bishop Godfrey Ona talk about the shallow way of Christianity in Nigeria, you get to see his idea.
Thank you very much for your talk. Very thought-provoking. And so I wonder whether you have a sense of what can be done about the intrusion of this prosperity gospel. For many Christians in the United States, and I think in other parts of the West, the growth of Christianity in Africa is actually a very hopeful sign with its decline throughout the West. And the fidelity of African Christians to biblical teaching is seen as a bulwark against the spread of very disordered lifestyles here in the West. Yet if in fact Pentecostalism is probably the form of Christianity that's growing the fastest in Africa, and it does seem to be theologically quite impoverished. And if what we're replacing, if the bulwark for Christianity is this impoverished form, it's really very troubling. So I'm just wondering, do you have any sense for what direction we could go to try and address the problems of the very shallow kind of Christianity that's growing so rapidly?
You're asking the right person because you're asking a Nigerian bishop. We have constant, well-developed program, both of catechesis and social action and formation, faith formation of our faithful in the light of the challenges of Pentecostalism. I, for one, I will always tell my people, we have two challenges in Nigeria now: Islam, radical Islam, and aggressive Pentecostalism. But I tell them that whereas Islam, as persecution, is likely to make Christians stronger, Pentecostalism is more dangerous because it destroys Christianity from its very roots. It nibbles at the things that are essential to our faith, and especially because it very easily accommodates teachings that are not really Christian, but are drawn from the traditional religion and culture. So we as church are aware of that. And we have programs, we have training programs, we have formation programs for our people. And of course, we sow the seed. It's the Holy Spirit that makes that germinate and mature. But we are aware of it. And the church, as mater et magister, as mother and as teacher, will continue to go to encounter those Christians where they are in their attraction to Pentecostalism, but continue also to teach them the right way. So.
And is it not possible to collaborate with Pentecostal pastors? I mean, for all the thinness of the theology, they are Christians.
They have all to gain that things are the way they are. It is big business. After oil, I think, Pentecostal preaching has become the next most lucrative business in Nigeria. I am not aware of any oil magnate who has 3 private jets, but I'm aware of a Nigerian pastor who has. So it's big business for them, and they would not care to collaborate with you. Because often their main reason for existing in Nigeria is to fight the Catholic Church and the other institutional churches. I always tell them, we have so many people who have not yet heard the gospel, and we have the Muslims who are disturbing us. Why don't you go converting them, only to poach from our own faithful? And that is what they constantly do. So they attack the basics, fundamental teachings of the church, and they especially promise immediate solution. Don't forget, though, you said it right. Hundreds of years ago, Western philosophers analyzed this type of religion and concluded that it would die. This was the basic thesis of Karl Marx. And also Nietzsche, one of the Christianity's worst enemies. One of his arguments against religion and Christianity in particular was this relationship between the rich and the poor and how the church was exploiting that. So my fear is that one of my priests says that Pentecostalism has no second-hand value, in the sense that it has not yet had its crisis. The Catholic Church especially, with all due respect to all the other Christian denominations, has been through every imaginable type of crisis. And yet, it's continuing. I'm still waiting. Some of the Pentecostal pastors have lost all their members because of the first accusation of infidelity on the side of their pastors. The people run away. So I think collaborating with them will be more difficult. And Father Paulinus knows we have an association called Christian Association of Nigeria, which is an umbrella for all the Christian groups in order to promote, one, ecumenism, and also protect Christian interests in a country that is also largely Muslim. Mm-hmm. But the Pentecostals will hardly ever agree with the Catholics on issues. So that's our situation.
Thank you so much.
Where's the lie in what the bishop is saying? Where is the lie in what he has been propagating? Where is the lie in what Bishop Hassan Kuka has been trying to tell us over the years? Where is the lie? We don't listen. Because why do you listen? How will you even listen? We've been badly treated. We've been badly indoctrinated. We've been badly told how to do things. We have almost zero tolerance for the next type of religion. We have zero tolerance for the next way of adhering to life and looking for God. We have zero tolerance for ecumenism. We think it's not a thing that is going to work. The Catholics completely think the Pentecostals are completely wrong. The Pentecostals think completely that the Catholics are wrong, and there's almost no meeting ground. As such, there are fights. Those in the Islamic religion think Christians are confused. The traditional ways of worship thinks both Islam and both Christianity, with a touch of Judaism that is practiced on the continent, is a thing that ordinarily shouldn't be done. The traditional worshipper wants everybody to go back to traditional ways of worshiping without understanding that the thing like freedom ordinarily exists. And people can choose and pick their ways of worship, not necessarily the ways their ancestors worship. Things can get to change. Things can get to change. But we are so stifled, we are so boxed in within ourselves, and we think we alone have the monopoly of how things ordinarily should be done and how things should go in our lives, in the lives of people who live around us, and in the lives of people we live in relationship with. There are lots of things we ordinarily have to unpack as Nigerians going forward. Our leaders have not been held accountable. It starts from there. Chinua Achebe said it, and he will continue to say it. He remains a moral voice for all of us. The problem with Nigeria is simply and squarely a failure of leadership. Leadership in your life, leadership in my life, leadership in our family endeavors, leadership in the ways we get to do things, leadership in the ways we refuse to do things, leadership in the ways we don't even want to do things. Look at you. Just imagine you. You have a daughter. She goes to school. You pay for school fees. Outrageous amount of money. Money you cannot even make in 6 months. How do you even make that money? You go and borrow. You go and lend. It doesn't end there. This your daughter doesn't tell you of all the charges they get to charge them in school. I call them charges because they are indeed charges. They are indeed traumatizing, to say the least. She doesn't tell you everything. She picks a boyfriend, or she picks up a side job. She picks up a hookup phenomenon. She picks up a hookup hustle and starts doing, and don't come back home and tell you, just to make ends meet. Your son goes into sugar mommy business. kills himself and kills his sense of sexuality and his sense of morality. And what happens? Just to make ends meet. It doesn't end there. Lecturers go about their spree of traumatizing students, making exorbitant charges out of students and making demands that are contrary to ethics, contrary to virtue. They call you, in most cases, they tell you about malpractice, from WAEC to JAM to sorting to pass courses. They tell you all these things. What do? You do almost nothing. You keep quiet. You accept it like you accept the results, and you accept this, and you say, oh, you know, I don't know what to do. This will lecture herself, eh? In the long run, the student don't even come to understand what he or she is being taught. He graduates into the labor market, goes to NYC and faces a different level of trauma. Recently, my friend Waba just signed out and he gave out some suggestions of what should be done in NYC and how things ordinarily should get to be improved. Because these things are not the ways life ordinarily should go. So that a place like River State and the facilities they build down there is seen as number one, and people get to lobby their way to go to law school down there and to go to NYC camp down there because they think it's a place ordinarily befitting of life. Some persons lobby their way down to Lagos because they want to have a touch of life. What happens to a place like Niger? What happens to a place like Afikpo? What happens to a place like Cross River and all other states that ordinarily get to live below the benchmark? It is not even as though these states ordinarily meet up the reality of what should be done in the 21st century. They don't meet up. But yet we have to pretend every time as if things are fine. Things aren't well with us. We are a people suffering. We are badly governed people. These students continue their journey. They go to the labor market, and what they have studied, that's if they even studied. Because there are no libraries, there are no books, there are no scholarships that ordinarily afford them the chance to get to live in houses that ordinarily are conducive for studies. Students live side by side with very noisy, lousy neighbors. And we think it's all fine. We think it's all well. We see churches and fellowship and student pastors everywhere in our campuses, and we think it's fine. It's a revival. I want to build souls for Christ. I want to win souls for Christ. Grant these people scholarships. Let them go abroad. You see that these things drop. It doesn't drop because they were not ordinarily worshiping God, but they were not doing it with the right intention. They were not doing it with an alternative to what they ordinarily ought to do. Pray as much as you want to pray. Pray at all time. Pray without season. So we've been admonished by the Holy Rite. But be responsible too. You cannot be a lazy Christian. You cannot go to church and expect miracle money. It is not going to happen. It can never happen. It will never happen. If it has happened to you, it was fraud. It was fraudulent. The pastor deceived you. He tricked you into believing that. If you've ever been told to sow in the church so that you get and benefit from the seed you sow, and that is the only thing you ought to do, just bring your money, bring the last coin, bring the widow's mite for us. You've been deceived. There's no better way to say these things. The church ordinarily should do better. It has not done better. How would they do better when they benefit from this? How would they do better when they benefit from such ways of living and such ways of doing things? To pastors and priests and church leaders out there making the people pay through their nose so that you can maintain your lifestyle. Shame on all of you. Shame on our priests. Shame on our pastors. Shame on our church leaders who ordinarily trick the people down that particular line, who ordinarily make the people pay through their nose just to maintain stupid lifestyles that they ordinarily know they cannot manage. Shame on to you if you don't tell the people the right ways of giving. Shame on to you if you continue to exploit your church members and you give them poor doctrine and you indoctrinate them in the wrong things. Your road to hell will be made so wild and your journey will be so swift and so fast. Shame on all people who sit down, who are in the know, who ordinarily should know better, but refuse to know better, who ordinarily are in the face of evidence and who should know better and who should come to accept these things as truth, but then get to turn the other side because of religious sentiments and religious indoctrination. Shame on you. Shame on as many persons who up until now have not seen to it that they need to check things, how things ordinarily ought to be done. Shame on you. Because tell me, how will somebody gain a scholarship, gain admission, enter a plane, travel to a country he knows nothing about with so much hope that he's going to make it in such countries? It is because systems work. And they don't even ask them if they are Christians or if they are Muslims before they give them job. They don't ask them what their names are. And these people come here and scream racism. They scream all sort of nonsense, inequality, and then they go back, like DK will say, and go and fight and bring ethnicity. They come here, they fight against racism, they seek equality. You go back home and you shout the devil, you turn to a beast. Pastors come abroad to preach, priests travel to monasteries, preach, travel to give retreats. You see the way they preach. Sanely, they preach with caution because people are ordinarily intelligent. People are educated to know when a priest or a preacher is being manipulative, when a preacher is going off the track, when he's going off the radar. And priests back home, kudos to those who try as much as they want, but many persons still go off the radar. And it's so sad that people spend 9 years, 10 years, 11 years, 12 years in seminaries for Catholic priests, and then they come out and ordinarily they cannot even propagate the gospel in the right way. They cannot even propagate the gospel in the way ordinarily they should do. They tell the people that the solutions to their problem lie where the solutions ordinarily are not. The solutions to our problems cannot be where we are looking for them. The solutions to our problems are in different places. And until we begin to tell ourselves that we ordinarily can do better and ought to do better and should do better, we are not going to go anywhere. We are not going to help our issues. We are not going to help our situations. We will just crumble, we will just fall, we will just die for things ordinarily not worth dying for. That is what we've been dying for. Nigeria is a badly governed country. Take it or leave it. Nigeria is a badly governed place. Africa is a badly governed, led continent. It's a badly led continent. There's no way to say this. You don't blame Egypt for wanting to pull out. It is not working on until we recognize our problems, until we call a spade a spade. We are heading nowhere. We will continue to delude ourselves and deceive ourselves and tell ourselves lies. We will continue to go to churches, pray for the wrong reasons, ask God for things we ordinarily can do with our hands, and we expect results. Imagine that you are a child. You are old enough to fend for yourself. You still go to your father to ask for money. Imagine that scenario. That's what we do. We have what it takes to be independent. We have what it takes to reach out to a girl and say, I want to get married to you. We have what it takes to build a house, start a family. But we are so irresponsible down to the point whereby we tell ourselves that we need to go meet our fathers and mothers to look for wives for us, to get married for us, to build houses for us, to teach us how to have sex, to teach us how to become pregnant, to teach us how to put to bed, and after that to teach us how to raise our kids. What level of irresponsibility? The church is not the problem, but the church is also the problem. The church and the state have failed. Leaders in the church need to tell the people the truth. You don't need to pray for the things you ordinarily pray. I know Pentecostalism has cropped and has eroded everything we do. We already see things by way of feelings. You get to see Pastor Edu talk about, I love prayer, I love prayer, I love prayer. And I smile and I laugh. You get to see these people get to make a caricature of spirituality. Come on. You don't need to pray the way you pray back home if you are abroad. The problems are man-made. They can be solved from a man-made perspective. They become a miracle if and only if they don't have any scientific and medical explanation or a natural cause. That is the only time a body like the Catholic Church gets to recognize miracle. But what do we see back home? Everything is a miracle. Everything back home is a miracle. You get a visa, is a miracle. You get a job, is a miracle. You get employed, is a miracle. You get a contract, is a miracle. Your child gains admission, is a thing that calls for Thanksgiving. He graduates, is a thing that calls for Thanksgiving. He gains a scholarship abroad, is a thing that calls for Thanksgiving. Everything becomes a miracle. Ordinary things have been raised to the level of being extraordinary. So that we even think it's impossible for a Christian to be in politics and be a good person. So that the likes of Peter Obi still surprises many persons. How can he be a Christian? Such a good man as he concerns other politicians. He's not really a Christian. I'm beginning to doubt his level of Christianity. Peter Obi is a Christian as much as he's a Christian. He has worked amongst different seminary bodies. He has been in different Catholic institutes. And he has been in also different governmental bodies. Thanks to his philosophical studies, but not only to that, thanks to his level of allowing himself to be used and allowing himself to be a virtuous man. It is not easy to be a virtuous man in the 21st century. It is not easy to be a Peter Obi in the political sphere where you find the current crop of our politicians. And there are people who should be charging all our angers to. People like Reno Mokri who give half-truth. People like Bayo Nonuga who champion calumny. These are the people we should be aiming towards. Politicians in office who do nothing for the people, who hope to do nothing, who don't want to do anything, who just want to milk the people dry, who just want to see the people go down and die, who just want the people to suffer to levels ordinarily they shouldn't be suffering. Politicians who just want to see people die, who just want to see people crumble. These are men we should run away from. These are men we should run as far as possible from. But we don't do that. We hang around with them. We carry their bags. We call them our brothers and sisters. And we want the country to get better. How will Nigeria get better in such a way? How will the people like Africans ordinarily come to experience a better life if they have not sat down to draw the maps of their villages and their towns? If the villages are still villages and the towns are still considered towns. And even when the towns still look like villages, they are still called towns. When we don't have water, we don't have flushing toilets, we don't have electricities. You see, but that's not the case. Where is the lie? Have you been to Maraba? Have you seen how people live in Maraba? Have you been to Kubwa? Have you seen how people get to manage their life in Kubwa? Have you been to Makoko? Have you been to Ibadan? Have you been to Samonda and you see how people live life down there? Have you been to Ekme? Have you been to Ibejuleki? Where have you been? Have you been to Ajah and see how people squat and how people queue just to make ends meet for themselves? Have you been in the traffic in Lagos and ask yourself, how much can people make and how much are we losing as a country because people stay so long in traffic? How do people die in Nigeria if not by dying the way they get to die? Cheap. Nigerians die cheap. Nigerians die the cheapest in the country. Nigerians die for stupid and careless and sad and annoyed reasons. Ask yourself, when was the last time you saw an ambulance? Not the thing we take to carry dead bodies to go and bury in the name of ambulance. I mean ambulance that get to respond to emergency. Ambulance that are very close to you. Ambulance that when you pick up your phone and you get to type and you get to check how things ordinarily are done, you can ordinarily get to find them and see them and then live with them. Ambulance that ordinarily would get to respond to things and get to respond to people on time. When was the last time you saw a police officer and not get terrified? When was the last time you actually lived life like a human being? When was the last time you went to a bookshop without ordinarily stressing your eyes and straining your head towards Lagos or Port Harcourt? When was the last time you saw a library in your village? That's if there have ever been a library in your village. When was the last time you saw a hospital in your village? In the city you live in, not even in Abuja, will you find affordable hospitals where you as a normal person can go and sit down and function well? Hospitals are so scarce, businesses are going high, rice is on its own level. We bought rice for 5,000 naira in this century. We bought rice for as low as 2,000 naira in this century. We bought cement for as low as we bought. You remember the song? No one knows tomorrow, no one. Only Jesus knows tomorrow, only Him. And you hear the interlude she normally gives. Even if they sell a bag of rice for 5,000 naira, and they decide to sell a bag of cement for 7,000 naira, and they decide to sell this for 20,000 naira. The children of God will surely survive. Never did she know that it will become so high as a bag of rice going for more than 100,000 naira. And people still eat in Nigeria. And yet we sit down and fight religious wars, and we sit down and fight religious arguments. Nigeria don't even need to be thinking about doctrines at the moment. We don't need that. Our theologians should write things that ordinarily meet reality. Our philosophers should do better. But how can they do better when they don't even have grants? When they don't even have grants to ordinarily fund research, when they don't even have grants to ordinarily see that life move well and move better for them, when they don't ordinarily have ways of doing things and have ways of getting to live their life better, how are they going to function? Tell me, how are Nigerians going to function when things don't work well? There are no roads, there are no trains functioning as well as and as much as they should do. Petrol and other crude products are still being transported by road, causing levels of explosion every year. Something as volatile as that shouldn't be a thing that should be transported via the road. But we see it happen, and nobody complains. Elections come, Christians go and pray and tell themselves that it depends on prayer and listen to prophecies. What is our problem? Why will you listen to prophecies about somebody you can ordinarily bring into power yourself? You hear Peter Obi was the person that was supposed to be president. God has said it. It will be Peter Obi. We are so emotionally attached in Nigeria. We are so spiritually dumb. And there's no way to say this thing. There's no cheap word to use. There's no lighter word to get to use. We cannot use lighter words on these matters. We ordinarily have to use the words the way they are. We ordinarily should say these things the way they are. We are people badly governed and badly led. You who are a student, when was the last time you ordinarily sat down to read? When was the last time you ordinarily sat down to do things and do your assignments and do them well, and you really want to study? The different learning tools that are available for the 21st century, do you think it's available for you? The ways education has been made so difficult in Africa, do you think that is how it's run in Europe? Or do you think that is how it functions in the West? Or even in Asia? Look at Dan Bello, look at what he does. Look at the things he gets to put out there. Look at the things he gets to show. Your ward councillors, the allocated funds states get for every month, what do they do with it? Cut it away by stupid merchandise by our political classes. By our political class, and we say I will do nothing. Local government chairmen almost are invincible and invisible at the same time. Senators, what do? Build gutters that don't really have plans. We are not really sophisticated. And sometimes you want to say it's not our fault, because when the world was doing what they were doing, we were ordinarily in a different place, enslaved and all of that. But we can come out of our problems. Information is available for all of us to get to see. Why not watch documentaries? Why not watch things and see how life functions abroad? Function far away from you. They might have their problem, moral problems, ethical issues with secularism and all that, but it is not as bad as our own situation. Give me a country that is secular than a country that is wrongly indoctrinated, because it's as good as not being religious at all. Give me a country that is completely atheistic than a country that practices religion wrongly, because they are the same thing. Where is the code? Where are the moral codes? It's so sad that we in the 21st century don't even see these things, that we in the 21st century don't even come to understand these things, that we in the 21st century, when they tell us these things, we become antagonistic, we become sad. When was the last time you, as a budding writer, an aspiring engineer, have ordinarily searched the internet and come to see things that ordinarily get to inspire you about your country? When people talk about Nigeria to this particular point, when people talk about Africa the way they get to talk about Africa, it is not a lie. It is not the whole truth. But where is the lie in what they are saying? I know it's the danger of a single story, but you don't necessarily need people to always come to tell you things from the right and the left perspective. You have to figure out life for yourself. You have to forge yourself out of that problem. And it starts by voting out these corrupt guys we have. Because the Nigerian system at the moment is not going to change with the current crop of lawmakers. Isn't the judges weakest building houses ever since 1998 up until now that you want justice from? Is it the judges that are carted away in the boxes and in the carts of political classes and made millionaires and made billionaires and being settled behind us to pass loquacious judgments? Is it the judges and the judicial system that has made somebody like Mr. Dere Faro to me look like a madman you want to look up to? Because he has been there, he has seen the system, he knows what it is. He knows what it is to be a lawyer in Nigeria. And so when you see the likes of Deji and a few lawyers, F Young, try to do the things they get to do, you have to appreciate them and know that these persons are working against all odds to make sure that a country like Nigeria gets to function and get to function well. Because there's nothing that points to the fact that a country like Nigeria ordinarily can function well. With the current crop of leaders, with the current constitutions we have, with the current ways of doing things, there's nothing that points to the fact that we ordinarily are going to function well. Because where is the lie? A politician wakes up today, he tells you he wants to build roads. It is the roads they have been building since I was a child. From the 90s up until now, they have been building roads. They have been building roads from Bujia to Okonde, from Okonde to Ekpogrinya, from Ekpogrinya to Ikom, from Ikom to Calabar, from Calabar to Abakaliki, from Abakaliki to Enugu, from Enugu to Onitsha, from Onitsha to Delta, from Delta to Ibadan, from Ibadan to Lagos, from Ibadan to Lagos. These are the things they have been telling us. These are the things they have been telling us, nothing else. I'll build roads, I'll build schools, I'll build this, I'll build this. Nigeria is a work in progress. Men at work, every day, every day, every day. The same story. The cars they get to change, the lifestyle they get to change. It's so despicable that they still live those lifestyles. The things they ordinarily ought not to be doing are the things they are doing. And the things we don't even see that they are doing. We see them as influential people, we see them as role models. Because tell me, we might want to say, oh, these people are corrupt. Look at the young people we even elect to put there. They are poorly educated. They are as daft as only God knows. And you want change to come up from that particular group of people. You want people to just ordinarily manufacture miracles. It cannot happen, dear Nigerians, dear Africans. We are going to remain the way we are until we begin to look at our problems squarely. The so-called white man is part of the problem, but it's not a problem in isolation. They are looking for products and they are doing business, and in the realms of business, they don't really care about ethics and morality. So that when the Chinese goes down to Kenya, Singaporean goes down to Ivory Coast to get to look for raw materials for their products, to drive their economy, they are doing that for business. They are not lazy people. They do research. They send scholars to get to study. How many persons are studying African studies? How many persons? How many persons are implementing those things? Predominantly those people who study Africa and study other cultures are foreigners. And they studied well, and they studied because they know they need these research materials. And the government and organizations fund these research programs so that these professors travel down to Africa for 1 week, 2 weeks, and then they come back and say they are scholars of African studies and African realities and African history. And they write books, they write articles, they write things, they write papers, lots of papers, they write lots of stuff down there. And they do these things and they pass it down to us, or they pass it down to whoever they pass down, and they see business opportunities and they come to your corridors and ask trickishly, with a business sense and with a business mindset, for partnership or for suppression or for whatever they ask for. And then they exploit us. They exploit us because we've allowed them to exploit us. They cheat us in business because we have refused to look at life and look at life from a very, very good perspective. Because what in God's name is stopping us from replicating TINAPA across the length and breadth of our country? Why are we just having only the Millennium Park? Why can't we replicate parks? The parks that the places that were ordinarily meant to be parks, in places like Wuse, they have all been converted to houses, they have been converted to beer parlors, they have been converted to everything but what they ordinarily were meant to do. People sit in parks. I am in a church. I'm sitting outside recording this within the confines of the church. Across the street, are parks you ordinarily can go see outside the monastery here. You can go out there. They are forests, man-made, and life functions. But no, we want the money and we're always looking for those to blame, and we always think the Holy Spirit is going to come out to do that. When I look at Pastor Edu, I feel like I should call him and sit him down and ask him what he's currently doing. And his mentor, they get to tell you they pray for hours, they pray for hours, they pray for hours, they pray for hours, they pray for hours. You need to pray for 12 hours. If not, you have not started. When will you walk? You feed him. Generosities of church followers get to feed people like that. And also from their diaspora audience also. Because when they go online, they attend church service by people who ordinarily are working and attending church service because they cannot go to church physically. And then they get to pay their offerings in foreign currency, and it gets converted to Naira. The pastor can live large. I don't have a problem with giving. But I have a problem when pastors are so lazy in thinking, when clergymen are so lazy in rational thinking, and when church leaders are so misinformed and poorly informed. I get traumatized, you know. Get traumatized from all of this. Because what is our problem? We can function well. We have not functioned well enough. And it is not the problem of the church. It is not the problem of God. God has not made your situation the way you are. The earth is the Lord and all therein. He has given dominion over this to you, if that's what you want to accept. If that's what you want to know. Lord has given us dominion. God has given us dominion. God has given us dominion. God has given us dominion. And so, use your 10 fingers. Count them. For those who have 10 fingers, and put them to work. Use your brain. Use your head. Be educated enough. Be open-minded enough. Be generous enough. Be forgiving to yourself. Be kind to yourself. And tell yourself, you know, this school I'm going to, what am I really doing here? What should I be doing by this time of the day? What shouldn't I be doing? How should I go? How shouldn't I go? How should I move on with life? How shouldn't I move on with life? How should I function? How shouldn't I function? How must I go? How mustn't I go? Because in the final analysis, P2B is not wrong. Your brothers and sisters who are abroad, who don't have scholarship or who don't have funding, work night shifts. And not only your brothers and sisters, foreigners get to do night shifts. The economy cannot function the way Nigeria functions. The economy of countries abroad cannot function the way the economy of Nigeria functions, because we do less and we are less productive and we are very responsible. Thanks to our government, they have made us this way, and we also have accepted to be this way. There's nothing to shy away from. It's the sad reality. It's the reality we must accept. It's the way we must look at life, and we must start telling ourselves, you know what? I think I ought to be responsible. I think I ought to begin to look at life from the perspective I have not been looking at life. I think I ought to start doing things the way I ordinarily should be doing things. But it starts with recognizing our problems. It starts with recognizing the fact that we are a people badly governed. We are a people badly led. We are a people so confused. We are a people left to die. And it doesn't make sense that we allow ourselves to be this way. It doesn't make sense that we allow our lives to be championed the way our lives have been championed here, with no recourse for peace, with no recourse for love, with no recourse for looking at ourselves and telling ourselves that these people we look up to every time for peanuts, for bags of rice, they don't mean us well. And it will take us 10 years, 20 years to get to realize that truth. They don't mean well to us. They don't mean well for us. They cannot mean well for us the way they are living their lives. Have you seen the idea of the whole clamor for getting a new jet for the vice president? In a country like Nigeria, in a place where we live, at the moment, the way we live, somebody is clamoring for jet for the vice president. Renovations are done, doors are imported, things are gotten from countries we ordinarily don't need. We ourselves in our personal lives have been so wasteful. We in our personal lives have also not been able to think beyond the levels of the things and the ways our ancestors have come to tell us and pass down things like farming to us, things like giving birth, things like nurturing a child, things like bringing a child up. What would we have done without the West researching things like psychology? What would have been our faith? What would theology have been and philosophy have been in the strictest sense of the word in terms of scholarship, if not for what the West do? How many of your brothers and sisters sit down at home, professors clamoring for Western institutions to get to recognize their works? They do that because your government has failed them. They do that because your ministers of education have not guaranteed education. And why is it that there's no power in the country? Because the Ministry of Power has bestowed no power. What about roads? The Ministry of Roads have bestowed no roads. What about sports? Sports is in shambles because the Ministry of Sport have not really looked at that particular stuff squarely and see to it that it functions well. In relation with the Minister of Finance, because they work hand in hand, because if people have time to work and they have breaks in between, they can ordinarily go think about watching a football match and doing it physically even. But the structures are not there. But year in, year out, we have ministers from all walks of life. Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, Minister of Education, Minister of Foreign Affairs, Minister of Interior. Different forms of ministries come up, they pop up here and there. They wear the regalia and they wear the pomp of men and women who do exploit in the 21st century and beyond. They come out. You see their canopy, you see their gele, you see their ishiagu, you see their agbada, you see all the regalias they get to put, you see their kaftans, you see all the stuff they get to put up. You see them sit as if they are so intelligent. Sometimes, and most times, nothing upstairs. And if there are things upstairs, they don't have the willpower, the strength, the logical reasoning and capacity to bring them to fruition. And so we are here where we are. So next time you want to think about Peter Obi and be outraged by the fact that he told you the truth about your life and your relationship with your government and your relationship with people in power, look not far, look within yourself. Look and tell yourself that, our leaders have failed us. And we also have failed ourselves. Because we go to school, but we don't go to school. Just imagine what we know after leaving school and what we would have known if the system was a bit simple for us, the way it is in the West. People go to school in the West and sometimes they're like, where's the stress in this thing? Where is the stress? There's no stress. People are inventing new ways of making life easier. People are still sitting down there somewhere telling us that a thing like the artificial intelligence is a thing from the devil. It's a mark of the beast. It's a sign of the end time. It's a thing you shouldn't do. It's not as if you can even access it. How do you want to access it? You don't even have access to it to start with. So we continue to lament, and we continue to lament, and we continue to lament. And we continue to die the way we do. Because we haven't looked at our life squarely. Come on. Spare me the joke that have become our life. Listen to David Hundeyi. Look at the anger in his voice. Listen to Deji. And see what these guys are saying. And see how pained they are. Listen to Shawore. Listen to Dele Farotimi. Listen to Aisha Yusufu. And the many other Nigerians who have been exposed to the danger of the current reality of our life and where we are headed. And like Steve Biko will say, it is not that the black man don't know his problems. We know our problems. We know our problems, but it is the consciousness we have not been able to build. It is the consciousness we need to build. As such, someone like Frank Fanon will tell us that the people, the leaders also owe it to their people to let them know that responsibility for a good governance, for good governance, for a thriving economy is not a thing that has to be done from one side. It's a thing that must be done from both sides of the spectrum. It's a thing that both sides must come to do. It's a thing that we must come to do together. It's a thing that we must do together if we want to function well. You have to be conscious of your responsibility, because not one person cannot be everything. One person cannot be an engineer, a doctor, a nurse, a surgeon, a lawyer, a policeman, a policewoman, a soldier, a navy officer, a teacher, a lecturer, a journalist, an auditor, a marketer, a banker. Name it, the professions are many. One person cannot do all of these, and few persons also cannot be left to do these things. And we are complaining that things are so expensive. We are ashamed of agriculture, and we are ashamed of to be called farmers, and we want to be loved. The joke is upon us, because tell me how we are going to function if we continue like this. Tell me how we are going to function if we continue living life as though we're in an animal farm, as though we are joking in this current dispensation, as though life means nothing to us, as though everything is all fine and good. There's nothing well about our economic situation. It's so bad. It's so bad, and we are not seeing it. You think Europe was built in a day. You think it's just going to turn all overnight. You think it's going to change by prayer. You think it's going to change by the shabby and shallow Christianity you get to practice back home, or the shallow and shabby Islam you get to practice back home. You think it's going to change by this way? You continue dreaming. Do you know how long it took the monasteries to get to convince the people to do things for themselves and turn away from their superstitious way of doing things? Europe has been where we are at the moment. And where they are at the moment, as it concerns spirituality and religion, is also not in a good place. But it is not completely in a bad and in a total mess the way we want to think about it. Why not learn from the next person? Why do we want to allow it happen to us before we learn? Why do we want to allow problems come our ways before we get to look at things squarely and do them and live life the way we ordinarily should live life? Why do we want to allow ourselves to fall? Why do we want to allow ourselves to die? It's not possible. We tell ourselves, our situations are so bad. We don't read the news. Our situations are so bad. They're terrible. We don't read the news, because what is there reading the news? Politics is for the corrupt. You have to be a native doctor. You have to be a spiritualist before you become a politician. Nigeria, who do us? Who do us? You have to be a bad man. You need to have money on your own before you become a leader. Who do us? Who do us? Who do us? Who do us? The US election is by the corner. Have you looked at the campaign of calumny even? But have you looked at the other side of the campaign donations? The US elections are coming up soon. But have you looked at the donations done by different bodies for this campaign? They don't depend on personal funds, because a politician ordinarily should not have so much amount of money. And if he really ordinarily want to serve the people, why does he want to spend so much? Nigerians, we should ask questions. Our country can only get better if you stand up, regardless of where you come from, and tell yourself that this country need to better, and we need to better together. And we come together to do these things. Or this country need to grow, and we need to come together to do and together. And we come together to do these things. If not, nothing is going to change. If not, nothing is going to get better. Nobody is going to come to build your country. There are already companies applying to get to rebuild Ukraine and rebuild Iran in the advent when the war gets to stop. And if you track and if you check this, it will still be companies in relation to those that really caused the war and really championed the war and really saw that the war is currently where the war is, that will still rebuild those cities. The cities will be rebuilt, but with money still. That is to show you how stupid humans are. We destroy a whole city and then we build the city back with money still. We kill people, we reduce population, we do ethnic cleansing, and we still cannot even tell ourselves what the problems ordinarily are. We cannot even identify who a man is or who a woman is in the 21st century, and yet we claim to be that civilized. So as confused as our leaders are back home, so also are we. You listen to Obama and you listen to the fact that most persons we look up to sometimes are as dumb as you cannot imagine. Listen to these people, read, write, research, sit down, study. You as a parent, talk to your children. Tell them that the world is bad already. Tell them the world have problems, they need to be solved. And help them, guide them towards that particular direction. Don't indoctrinate them. Allow them ask all the questions they want to ask. Allow them do things the way they want to do things, and allow them be a bit free. Allow them be humans. Allow yourself also a chance to breathe. Allow yourself a chance to be free. Hope that the world is going to get better. Hope is what you have to do. And while hoping, you work at it. While hoping, you work at it. Because that's the only way it can work. While hoping, you work at it. While hoping, you try your best. You strive to be better. You strive to stand strong and to stand tall. While hoping, you yourself, you hope to be better. That's the only way we can come out of this. Peter Obi is not the problem of the country. He doesn't hate religion, of course. He said it. I'm a Christian, I believe in God. And rightly so, you see it in his life. What about you? He's been responsible enough to come up before the crop of politicians we have at the moment to tell us, I can be a president if you make me one. And I'm not going to give you shishi. Listen to Barack Obama and hear what he has to say. Look at yourself and ask yourself how stupid you are or how stupid you've become and how intelligent you can get if you ordinarily do things the way you ordinarily ought to do them. The funniest part of this stuff all is the fact that reactions were done even before the clip was out. The entire interview is not out and Nigerians are on it. Just goes to show you how badly educated and how illogical sometimes we are. Just goes to show you how far we are. So that the next time when somebody wants to tell you, I have traveled, that is why I am the way I am, just laugh. I have traveled, I've been exposed, the same way Reno gets to do it, laugh. Traveling gives you experience, but it doesn't take away your daftness if you are daft, or doesn't take away your biases if you are biased. What do I know? I am Birin Bob in Emeka. I am your brother. I am the mendicant. See you next time. Peace.